So, we're 3 weeks into Video Nasty Month, and we've come to, I'd say, arguably the most notorious of them all.
How could we have had a Video Nasty Month and not included Cannibal Holocaust?
I think it's almost an obligation, I think.
It's almost name brand, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, yes.
We are dealing in here with the disturbed, Wayne.
Very disturbed.
The degenerates.
We're disturbed. The people who are listening to this are likely disturbed as well. It's made for the disturbed, yeah.
We're comforting the disturbed here. We're comforting the disturbed. And look, hey, we've alluded in past episodes when we've been talking about certain films, video nasties, etc., that we would class this as a modern classic.
Yes.
So, but here's the thing. We made that assertion without seeing it for several years.
Quite a few years in my case.
So what's going to be interesting is finding out if we still hold those ideals. Do we still think this is the modern classic? I was looking forward to that, to see if it held up in a different climate, because, you know, we're in a culturally different climate now.
Yeah.
Has the opinion changed? Has its intention changed? Has the way it's been made changed?
And maybe most importantly, has its relevancy changed as well?
Exactly.
Because of all the video nasties we're doing, this is the only one I'd seen before. Even Don't Go in the House, I chose that one because I thought it'd be interesting. Never seen it before. But this one I'd seen, I think maybe, I'm going to say 2015 was when I first seen it. I was on a kind of controversial movie binge, and that's when I came across it.
I think this was a third watch for me.
Watch?
Which explains a disturbed youth.
That explains a lot of things,
That's a disturbed teenage years there, right? But here's the thing. There's things you find out about something on several viewings, isn't there? Mm-hmm. With this film, I'm going to say there is certain positives. But here's the thing. Here's the thing I didn't guarantee. I thought, okay, I've made my opinion of this film. So all I'm going to see here is more nuance that adds layers to this film. But what I never anticipated actually was there's a lot of points to this film that have detracted for me now and made it a lesser film.
When you mention that, it's the same, because we were actually speaking about this, saying when you go back to it, is it going to hold up the same? I think for me, the first time I watched it, it had that real punch because it was this mega famous movie, mega notorious, and I'd never seen it before. Watching back second time, you don't quite focus on that. It's a lot more of the nuances and the details. And yeah, watching it back, there were some things that didn't hold up for me as well this time either.
So, look, we have to talk about, Wayne, the Cannibal film.
Yes.
The Cannibal film. This film, directed by Ruggero Deodato.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Wayne. This is the most infamous, but it's not the first. The first known, or the first within this genre of exploitation cannibal films, was actually The Man from Deep River by Umberto Lenzi. Famous Italian director, or, exploitation director. And it's not even Deodato's first cannibal film, because he would make Last Cannibal World. Yeah. There's a name.
He also made one, was it Jungle Holocaust? But I think that was actually after that, wasn't it?
No, The Last Cannibal World is also called Jungle Holocaust.
Oh, it's an alternate title.
It's an alternate title.
Right.
But here's the thing. Deodato actually prefers Last Cannibal World to this film.
Yeah. From what I read about this film, I've read some of the Ruggero. He says he regrets pretty much everything about this film.
Well, he actually wavers on this, Wayne.
Yeah.
He in one interview he'll say he regrets this and that, and in others he'll stand up for the points he's nullifying. So he's kind of he's wavering on the line. It's hard to kind of gauge where Deodato stands. I think depending on the company he's in, if he's listening to an avowed fan, for example, the famous director Eli Roth, who is famously a fan of this film, the salaciousness, the sensationalism that detracts maybe mainstream critics, he'll big up those points. But if he's speaking to certain critics, he'll downplay certain elements.
So it more depends on who he's talking to, because I believe Oliver Stone is a big fan as well.
He's a big fan. I think it's what we'll get into. It's that Mondo aspect.
Yeah, Mondo.
We're big fans. The journalist / writer Hunter S. Thompson.
Yes.
That gonzo element. You get into the story. You become the story. And this film is you're becoming the story. The actors themselves are, they're divulging in the brutality of the essence that they're portraying. So it's in a very way, it's a very gonzo film. And I think that's both what brings people to the film and detracts from the film.
Yeah, not just cannibal films, also we have to talk about found footage films, which is something we discussed in our Creep episode.
Which was a great found footage film, which was also, this film had kind of fell out of favour a little bit.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the Blair Witch that people started gaining another interest in it.
Well, that was the Blair Witch is what really brought it back into the mainstream, because you had films like this that kind of kicked it off. Then you had Blair Witch, which helped to bring it more into the mainstream, and then something like Paranormal Activity, which demonstrated its, its kind of commercial potential.
Hey, you know how we keep saying found footage? This is a hybrid of sorts.
It's about 50-50 found footage, yeah.
It's partly narrative and it's partly found footage.
Yeah, I would call it a film of two halves.
Exactly.
And actually, that's where some of my issues came up of which is better, the kind of introduction to the found footage or the found footage itself. Because when I watched it, I found much more of a disparity in quality than the first time I watched it.
Right, so, Wayne, as you say that, I've actually got a quote here. So, do you agree with this? I'm going to lay the quote. Are you a fan of the director Sergio Leone?
Yes.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Spaghetti Westerns.
The Dollars Trilogy.
Once Upon a Time in America.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to quote him. You give me your opinion on this. When he first saw the film, he told Deodato, he said, the first half is okay. It's an adventure film. The second half is a masterpiece. Mm-hmm. Are you that way, or are you the flip?
No, I prefer the found footage stuff. So I'll go with what Leone said there.
I agree as well.
You agree as well?
It's the handheld quality. It's that gonzo aspect. You're in deep, Wayne. That's what it is.
The authenticity of it.
Authenticity. That's what I appreciate. Now, there's things to detract from that.
Yes.
Of course, we're a civilized society. We think. Are we? I don't know.
Yes.
Hey, Wayne, that's the theme of the film. Are we as civilized as we think?
Exactly. That's a word that comes up over and over again, yeah.
So, but I agree. The second half it excels in putting you in the dirt, in the grime, in the atmosphere. It's building there. It's handheld footage. You feel this is authentic.
Yeah.
And Wayne, that is influenced. Of course, we can't discuss this film without talking about the Mondo documentary, which, look, first started in Italy. You had two filmmakers, Franco Prosperi and Guillermo Gepetti, and they would make films like Mondo Cane, Africa Dido, Goodbye Uncle Tom. Right, these were sensationalist films.
Yeah.
They were usually about, post-colonial Africa.
Yeah, there were a lot of things, for example, graphic events from around the world. So you had things like violent rituals, executions, bizarre local customs, the kind of thing you would have seen in like Faces of Death.
Well, that's a Mondo, yeah.
Yeah, that's
another
film as
Mondo.
well.
There was Mondo Topless by, famed. there's a title.
Even these names are strange. Mondo Topless.
Well, there you go. It's by Russ Meyer, director of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Oh, yeah.
Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. He was a good director of sorts, if you're into that kind of thing, which Beyond the Valley of the Dolls I like. Faster Pussycat Kill Kill I very much like as well. But, look, let's contextualize, Wayne, because people are going to be thinking, hey, you're talking about these Mondo films, but these didn't spring from anywhere. So where does this culture of this come? And for me, I was gestating on this, and I was thinking, okay, this is post-World War II.
Yeah.
Soldiers are coming back from the Pacific. They're coming back from these, quote-unquote, exotic locations. So post-World War II, we were getting this exotic climate. People were being interested. Look, what's beyond Christianity? What's beyond, the 2.5 children are married with wife and kids.
Because these people that went out to war, this was the first time they'd ever experienced these foreign cultures.
Right, so they brought back, famously in America, Tiki culture, which was the Polynesian culture. Tiki bars are still a thing. Not so much here in the UK, are they?
No.
I've never saw a Tiki bar in the UK.
One in Edinburgh.
You saw one?
That's the only one. I got like an actual authentic Tiki glass from there.
What was that like?
It was awesome. It was really damn good.
Can you remember the cocktail?
No, I can't. It was red.
That's shameful. I want to know. Wayne, if you're going to give me such pleasant information, I would like to know in future.
Apologies if that was too vague. I did drink quite a lot of them, so that could explain why I don't remember what it was.
So do us all a favour, Wayne. Next time, if you frequent a tiki bar, take a notepad. Ask the bartender which ingredient is in it.
Yes.
And then relay to us, the audience, what the hell you're drinking.
Yes, and then we'll make a tiki podcast where we can discuss all of the different drinks.
Mid 20th century, okay, we're dealing with the esoteric. People are more into paganism. We're going New Age. We're getting into these Far Eastern religions, aren't we? People are becoming interested in the outside world. And to me, these Mondo films is as sensationalist, as as some critics say, racist or derogatory, whatever term you want to say, whatever they want to be called, they were bringing a culture into the TVs and the cinemas of a Western audience that they probably wouldn't have seen prior.
Well, I think the controversy springs from, like you say, looking at these other cultures. It's the way they were looked at, the kind of gaze, the eye that was put on them, because they were looked at as
the barbarian.
Exactly, because you look at it and think, this is, good word, uncivilized. This is savage. This is not how we live our lives. So this is just barbaric. Again, this is paganism. This is old school kind of stuff. So yeah, when these things were looked at by, you could say, the Western eyes, yeah, they were viewed as being unconscionable, a lot of the things they were doing. But for a lot of people, like in this film, it was just a kind of way of life. It was just their rituals, their routines, which they'd had for time immemorial.
And as you were saying, you prefer the second half of Cannibal. I prefer the second half of Cannibal. And Wayne, you would say that's the Mondo element.
Yes.
And I think Deodato's intention of this film, because at first he was going to make a documentary.
Yes, he was.
But then he made this narrative film. And to me, this is a narrative fictional way of making his Mondo film. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, using the techniques to kind of tell a story in with that structure, that kind of context that the Mondo films were very famous for.
Right, because he's using the tropes, isn't he? It's very sensationalist. It's barbaric. It's very barbaric. It's dealing with a culture that is alien to the Western eye and putting that gaze on it.
Yeah.
And you can't altogether tell who is to blame, who's the victim, who's the protagonist, who's the hero. It's muddying the waters. Because Deodato's, he's got... Because this is... You could almost make out this is a polemic film, isn't it?
Yes.
It's trying to make a political point. Now, I've got a question for you later I won't bring up about the polemics of this film. But does the end justify the means? I'm not exactly sure.
But what you said about, who's the real, who's the bodies, who's the savage, exactly. It's the last line in the film. It's probably the most famous line in the film. And it's very pertinent to the story as a whole. But if you talk about the origins of this film, what I was reading is Deodato was watching news coverage. It was Red Brigade terrorism, which were an extremist group who actually assassinated the Italian president in the late 70s.
Well, the Red Brigades in the 70s, this took part in what was called the Years of Lead.
Yes.
Which was it was supposed to be a far-left militancy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They were a Marxist-Leninist group, and they kidnapped and murdered the Prime Minister Aldo Moro. And this was taken part as, the Western world was going through this revolutionary change. We had the Red Army faction in Germany. We had the Weather Underground in the United States. We had the Black Panther Party in the United States. We had Malcolm X, etc. And this is where this is fermented. He saw this on the TV, this, far left violence. Which was usually built up of students and the working class, the trade unions, etc., who were, were sick of the lives they were living. They were sick of the narrative that was being built by the bourgeoisie. So in Italy, these years were called famously the Years of Lead. And this took part in Deodato's mind. His son was watching the news, and, the Red Brigades were on, and Deodato thought that the media focused on portraying violence with little regard of journalistic integrity.
Yeah, he was watching this basically saying they're trying to portray it in a much more negative light by focusing on the violence, focusing on the atrocities. So yeah,
the bloodshed.
Exactly. It's like when you see, they say, sensationalism sells stories. It does.
It does, yeah.
So you're more likely to tune into that. You're more likely to read that in a newspaper. So it's, again, losing journalistic integrity, sacrificing it for the sake of making a more sensationalized news story.
This film is dealing with very interesting ideas. This is exploitation, Wayne.
Yes.
There's no denying it's exploitation.
Can't deny that.
But whatever your opinion on that is, if exploitation puts you off, then you're never going to be convinced, are you?
No.
But look, we're dealing with important themes here. We're dealing with important ideas here. It's a very polemic film, as I already stated. So let's get into it a little bit. Let's try and convince the audience or detract from the audience. Is the polemics of this film, are we rising above the issues, or is it using issues purely for exploitation and it becomes accused of what it is?
No, well, I think the issues are definitely there, and in some way they do rise above the material. But do you think almost sometimes the movie kind of revels in its exploitation, it kind of revels in its sensationalism, and if you do that too much, the message can just be lost?
Well, you become what you're disagreeing with. So Deodato, as we said, he's up in flames with this the journalistic integrity, the sensationalizing of the news feed. But in a sense, he's making the very same film he is disagreeing with.
Yes, it's basically like trying to criticize an overly violent film, say a film that glorifies violence, by making an overly violent film yourself. Like, what's the point you were trying to make? This kind of movie is bad, but you've just made that kind of film. So what's your point exactly?
Okay, Wayne, set me up the premise. Quickly set up the premise for us.
Okay, of the film. Well, the concept, the idea of the film is you've got a group of documentarians who've, this is not the first time, they've done this a few times in other countries. What they've done, they've gone out into the Amazon jungle and they're hoping to film tribes out there, indigenous tribes.
Which we're saying it feeds into the Mondo influence.
Feeds the Mondo influence, yeah. And they've gone missing.
Right.
And we have a guy called Dr. Monroe, played by Roger Corman.
Why is he important? Wait, tell us. You can't.
Because he has a mustache. No, sorry.
It's
because he was a prolific pornographic actor. He was in Debbie Does Dallas.
Which is one of your favorite films, is it?
What? Wow. No, not actually seen that. Someone did tell me it's nothing like what you'd think, but I don't know what to think it is. So anyway, he plays an anthropologist, and he goes out into the jungle, accompanied by some guides, to try and
it's on the Brazilian and I think is it the Peruvian border?
I think the Peruvian Brazil-Peruvian border.
We're in the Amazon, which is referred in this film as the Green Inferno.
Green Inferno.
Which Eli Roth would definitely not take that title.
No, also interestingly, the Green Inferno, I believe, was actually when the screenwriter Gianfranco Clarisi, when he was writing this film, that was actually the working title of it.
Did he not come from the Mondo world? I think
he did. He wrote for Deodato and Umberto Lenzi.
Well, did you know? Here's an interesting fact. I like how we go in a little asides way. So let's. Did you know Deodato actually he was brought up? He was under the mentorship of. Take a guess who you think he was under the mentorship. This is Deodato we're on about.
Which filmmaker was he?
Yeah,
by?
He's Italian, of course.
Leone, Argento,
Roberto Rossellini.
Rossellini,
the famed neorealist,
the one and only. Holy
How
shit.
the hell did that happen?
Well, he went in a totally different direction.
But did he, Wayne? Is he bringing reality in a different way?
Oh,
you could make the argument there, Wayne.
Kind of warping reality. So he got something from Rossellini, we're saying, but
he's got something.
Holy crap! Holy crap! No, I didn't expect that.
I didn't mean to take us on that aside. You continue.
Totally did. No, but he goes out into the jungle and they stagger on the film crew, or we'll say what's left of the film crew, and they recover the film canisters, take it back to New York, and this broadcasting company is hoping to broadcast the footage, but he says no, let's watch it first, because these people all died getting this footage, so they decide to watch the footage, and that's where the second half of the film kicks in. That's where it goes from the narrative into found footage.
So let's discuss the first half. So our protagonist of the first half is, Richard Kerman's Monroe. Richard Kerman is the Debbie Does Dallas guy. Which, did you know, Deodato states he never knew he was in the adult industry. And if he did knew, which he is disgusted by, he would have never chosen him to play the part.
He made this film and he was disgusted by the
porn.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What's funny is this...
they still dislike each other to this...
Actually, this is not funny. This is actually kind of sad. Kerman, again, went in the porn industry. Then he came into this film, and this film kind of buggered his hopes of mainstream career, and he went back into porn. He did, however, do Cannibal Holocaust the year later. Which, if anything, was actually more controversial. In fact, we're talking video nasties here, Cannibal Holocaust, in its box art, actually brags about being the most banned film in the world. It was banned in something like 31 countries.
31 countries. Well, this was banned in a handful of countries.
Yeah, it was.
This wasn't released in the UK until 2002.
That's unbelievable.
2002, it was not released in the UK till... and that still included 8 minutes of cuts.
That does make you think. Like the version I watched, about an hour and a half.
Yeah, we pretty much saw that.
So you have to wonder: did we see things that were cut out? In fact,
though there was one scene, Wayne, with a muskrat, and and we cut away from there.
Well, that's the thing. There is a lot of choppy editing in the second half, and you do wonder: is this because to keep up the found footage rough aesthetic, or is this because no, we don't actually want people to see this thing?